Okay, so what I want to talk about tonight, and it's actually kind of a hot topic in the news right now, and maybe even around a lot of the world, is transgender pronouns. So I'm going to choose my words very carefully because I don't want to be misrepresented or misquoted when it comes to this topic. But I do believe it is something important to talk about because, of course, you have a lot of things going on right now, like within Canada, how they passed Bill C-16 a few years ago. And then even apparently New York passed some legislation as well penalizing business owners if they don't use preferred pronouns for transgenders. Okay, so with that said, I just want to talk about that a little bit. Apparently, one of the fines is $150,000. And then it can even go as high as $250,000. Now, my issue, of course, with this is free speech, okay? Because now we're actually talking about placing restrictions on free speech. And to some people, it may not seem like that big of a deal, because if we're talking about transgenders, which I understand that they probably want to be called what they want to be called, and I don't necessarily have a problem with that. And what I mean by that is if I was having a conversation with somebody who's a transgender and they said, hey, I want you to refer to me as he or she or they or Z or whatever, I'd probably be like, okay, why not? I'll be courteous. But it becomes an issue, okay, when you get the government involved. When it's like, I want you to call me he, she, they, or Z, or else you're going to have to pay $150,000 or $250,000 or maybe even go to jail. I'm not entirely sure if the legislation goes that far, but I'd heard from someone that it does. But with that said, it really becomes an issue then. And of course, from their perspective, they maybe perhaps they see it as discrimination. I don't agree with that. I don't think that referring to someone or not referring to them as far as how they want you to refer to them necessarily means you're discriminating against them. I mean, I could tell somebody that I want them to call me Mr. Bunny, but maybe they don't want to. And I realize that's not an exact equivocation with this topic, but the point is, if we're talking about being courteous, that's one thing. But if we're talking about it being a right, that I have a right to be called this or that, I don't necessarily agree with that, because I believe that freedom of speech is more important, because we all have to have freedom of speech or none of us can. And I think that going down this road opens a door, okay? And what I mean by that is because once you start placing restrictions on certain speech or once you start forcing people to use certain speech, then who's to say they won't take it a step further? Okay, and so now we got to use these words, or now you can't say this, or you can't say that. I believe it's opening a door to go down a road that we really don't want to go down, and I think that's probably the biggest issue. And of course, you have the whole bathroom issue that's going on right now, which that's not something I'm really going to get into tonight. I feel like this is far more important because we're actually talking about putting restrictions on speech, which, I think at the end of the day is going to take us to a place that we don't want to be. I mean, given the evidence of history, the fact that that's the very first amendment is freedom of speech, that those are things you have to take into consideration. And again, I get the fact that transgenders, they want to be called what they want to be called. That's understandable. But at the end of the day, when you're talking about forced speech or restricting speech, it's going to go down a bad road. There's really just no other way around it that I can see. So I feel like this is something that really needs to be addressed. And I'm probably going to talk about it again in other videos where I'm going to go into a little bit more detail. But that's just the main thing I wanted to point out. My biggest concern about this is, again, I don't necessarily have a problem with calling somebody what they want to call. But I want to have that option, okay? Because, again, perhaps I don't agree with you, you know? So, but also at the same time, like I just said earlier in the video, more than likely, if they say this is what I want to be called, then okay. And then, of course, another issue this presents, because I believe in the article that I read when it was talking about the legislation, that people who purposely, only people who purposely used improper pronouns would be the ones that be punished. If somebody did it by an accident, then they wouldn't. But how is it that you determine that? Okay, we're talking about $150,000 or a $250,000 fine. Maybe I said it once without realizing, what the person wanted to be called, and they got super offended and right away want to press charges, and they claim I did it repeatedly. I mean, it just becomes a whole nother issue. Even when we're talking about that. So again, I just feel like this is going to take us somewhere where we don't want to be. I believe Americans should be really concerned. And I don't have anything against transgenders. If you want to be a transgender, that's fine. That's entirely up to you. And also, if you want to be called a certain thing, okay, that's fine too. It's just like maybe I want to be called Mr. and my last name. But if somebody doesn't want to call me that, I don't think that I should have the right for them, to penalize them to pay a $150,000 fine or to put them in jail. And I guess that's the point that I'm trying to make. We all have preferences, okay? But the First Amendment has existed now for a few hundred years. And I just believe that is important. And I think this is something that we should consider before we go down this road any further. And I believe all speech should be protected. And of course, the way you combat that is if you don't agree with somebody, you tell them you don't agree with it. All right? You debate them. But to put restrictions on speech or, to promote forced speech, I just don't think it's going to go anywhere good. So this is a big concern of mine. And again, I'm probably going to talk about it in another video. So if you have anything you want to add, please put your comments below. Thank you.